What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new. I'm Haley, and this is another true crime video. So today I am covering a very big case that I feel very passionately about sharing, and yeah, we're just gonna get into it. I did cover this case on my podcast last week, so if you're coming across this video and you'd rather listen to a podcast, you can go listen to that. It is always linked in my description box below, and the podcast definitely had some really good conversation with my co-host and I about the case, since it is unsolved. So if you want to hear that, go check that out, but let's get into the case. 18 years ago today, February 9th, 21-year-old nursing student Maura Murray disappeared after getting into a car crash in New Hampshire. Since that day, many searches for Maura have been done, but no sign of her has ever been found. And here's her story. Maura Murray was born on May 4th, 1982 to Fred and Lori Murray. She had 4 siblings, an older brother, Fred, 2 older sisters, Kathleen and Julie, and a younger brother, Kurt. The family lived in Hanson, Massachusetts, and they were an Irish Catholic family. When Maura was 6 years old, her parents ended up getting a divorce, and Maura mainly lived with her mother after that. In high school, Maura was a star track athlete. She graduated from Whitman-Hanson Regional High School, after which she went on to the United States Military Academy to study chemical engineering. So she studied at the Military Academy in West Point for 3 semesters, and then she decided to transfer to the University of Massachusetts Amherst to study nursing. So there's a few things that happened before Maura went missing that I want to discuss here, but just remember that this doesn't have anything to do with her disappearance directly, and I'm just mentioning it because it is something that people discuss now. In November 2003, Maura was caught using a stolen credit card. She had used it to purchase pizza, and she was caught for that. She was charged, but the charges were to be dismissed after 3 months of good behavior. And then on February 5th, 2004, a very weird encounter happened with Maura while she was at her job. She worked as like a campus security officer, basically scanning ID cards and stuff like that from what I could gather. While at work the evening of February 5th, Maura spoke with her sister Kathleen on the phone. And when Maura first went missing, we just knew that they basically discussed some of Kathleen's relationship problems, but in 2017, the contents of their actual phone call came out. Apparently, Kathleen had been a recovering alcoholic, and she told Maura that that day she had gotten out of rehab and her fiance had taken her to a liquor store. So apparently on this phone call, Kathleen told Maura about this, and that made Maura extremely upset, understandably so. And with that, Maura basically broke down in tears. Her supervisor later said that when she went up to Maura to figure out what was going on, Maura was unresponsive. When Maura's supervisor asked her what was wrong, Maura just said, "My sister." And her supervisor escorted her back to her apartment at about 1:30 that morning. When the contents of that phone call were revealed in 2017, many people believe that Maura kind of had an emotional breakdown hearing what was going on with her sister. But then on Saturday, February 7th, 2004, Maura's father, Fred, came into Amherst. They were going car shopping that afternoon. Maura had a very old, beat-up car, and she was starting to need to drive more to be able to go to nursing clinicals. So her father came to Amherst so that they could go car shopping together. They went car shopping that afternoon, but didn't actually purchase a car. After car shopping, they went to dinner, and then Maura dropped Fred off at his motel so that she could borrow his car to go back to campus to a party. Maura was at the party with her friends Kate and Sarah, and she left around 2:30 in the morning. When she was driving back to her father's motel, Maura got into a car accident. Thankfully, no one was hurt, and no documentation of a field sobriety test was ever shared. Maura was then driven to her father's hotel where she stayed that night, and apparently at around 4:30 a.m. she called her boyfriend Bill, just hysterical, really upset about the accident, and Bill basically told her, calm down, get some sleep, and we'll talk tomorrow. The next morning, Fred learned that there was about $10,000 worth of damage to his car, and although he was upset, he reassured Maura that it wasn't a big deal and insurance would cover it. Fred rented a car, dropped Maura back off at the university, and then headed home. On the evening of Sunday, February 8th, Maura's father, Fred, called her, telling her what she needed to get. She needed to go get some accident report forms so that they could file those with insurance. So at the time, they agreed to talk again on Monday so that Fred could walk Maura through submitting those forms. But that never happened. So Sunday night, which is technically now the very early morning hours of Monday, February 9th, Maura was searching on MapQuest for directions to Burlington, Vermont. The first reported contact that Maura had with anybody on February 9th was at 1 p.m. when she emailed her boyfriend, Bill. The email said, quote, "I love you more, stud. I got your messages, but honestly, I didn't feel like talking to much of anyone. I promise to call you today, though. Love you, Maura." And then at some point on that Monday, we know that Maura went and picked up those accident forms. And also around 1 p.m., Maura made a phone call to a condominium in Bartlett, New Hampshire. Apparently, her family had stayed at this condo association in the past, and she was calling, inquiring about a condo for rent. But the phone call lasted only 3 minutes, and we know that the owner did not rent a condo to Maura. And then at 1:24 p.m., Maura emailed her professors at the university telling them that she would be out for a week because she had a death in the family. But there was no death in the family. But in that email, she said that she would contact them when she returned. At 2:05 p.m., Maura called a number that provides recorded information about booking hotels in Stowe, Vermont. The line was out of order, so she couldn't actually talk to anyone, but she did listen to the listings because we know that the phone call lasted 5 minutes. And then at 2:18 p.m., Maura called her boyfriend, leaving him a voicemail saying that they would talk later. At around 3:30 p.m., Maura drove off of the University of Massachusetts Amherst campus in her 1996 Saturn sedan, the same one that was in really bad condition that her dad really didn't want her driving anymore. At 3:40 p.m., Maura withdrew $280 from an ATM, and there was ATM footage of this. You can see her. She does appear to be alone. Then Maura went to a nearby liquor store where she purchased $40 worth of alcohol, including Kahlua, Bailey's, vodka, and a box of wine. Also on the receipt from the liquor store was a line item that showed that she had turned in some cans or bottles, and she got about $4 back. And so this was just interesting because it doesn't seem like this is something that somebody would do if they're planning to run away. It was just $4. It wasn't like a ton of money. So Maura's next known whereabouts aren't exactly known, but it's assumed that between 4 and 5 p.m. she was driving north on Interstate 91. But her destination to this day is still unknown. At 4:37 p.m., Maura called her voicemail, and that is the last usage of her cell phone that night. At some point, Maura was driving through a small town in New Hampshire called Haverhill. This is about 95 miles northeast of Amherst, about a 2 to 2.5 hour drive. At about 7:25 p.m., Maura's car went off the road, flipping and basically turning into the other lane facing oncoming traffic. A resident of Haverhill heard this crash outside of her apartment. So this was a woman named Faith Westman, and she looked out the window, saw the crashed car, and called 911. Much of the 911 transcript is redacted, but we know that she said that she didn't know if anyone was hurt, she hadn't gone outside to investigate, and some sources say that she reported seeing a man smoking a cigarette in the car. As I said, a lot of the 911 call is redacted, so we don't know for sure, and Faith later said that she never saw that. Shortly after that, a neighbor of Faith's, a bus driver named Butch Atwood, was driving down the road when he saw the car crash and a woman walking down the road. So he stopped his bus, got out, and tried to figure out what was going on. He said that the woman did not look like she was bleeding or injured, but looked shaken and cold. And he said that she also did not appear to be intoxicated. Butch offered to call the police, but the woman told him that she had already called AAA. But Butch knew that this couldn't have happened because there was no cell reception on that road. But Butch didn't want to push her, so he continued on driving home and called 911 when he got home at 7:43 p.m. In the 911 call, Butch described a single vehicle accident where a car hit a pine tree and the airbags were deployed. He described to the dispatcher that there was heavy damage but no blood that he could see, and he also told them that he saw a single female walking. The first police to arrive at the scene was at 7:46 p.m., 3 minutes after Butch made that phone call. Officer Cecil Smith arrived at the car crash and started looking around. He saw no signs of Maura. He did observe a red liquid in the snow, and it's believed that that was from the boxed wine because he could also see that red liquid on the roof or ceiling of the car. Cecil said that the left headlight was severely damaged and there was a crack in the windshield on the driver's side of the car. The car was also locked, and Cecil was surprised that there was nobody in sight. When they were eventually able to get into the vehicle, they found an empty bottle, the damaged box of Franzia wine on the rear seat, Maura's AAA card, the blank accident forms, some CDs, jewelry, and Maura's gloves. They also found Maura's favorite stuffed animal and one of her favorite books inside the car. But what was missing were Maura's debit and credit cards, her cell phone, and Maura. Police also later reported that some of the bottles of liquor that had been previously purchased were missing. And then they discovered something extremely weird. They discovered a rag stuffed into the tailpipe of the car. And this is something that a lot of people talk about in this case because it just seems so bizarre. Now, it is believed that this rag came from Maura's roadside service repair kit. Maura's sister Julie actually recently shared in a TikTok video that their father Fred had actually mentioned to Maura that this was something she could do if she absolutely needed to drive the car. Fred really didn't want her driving this car, but if she absolutely had to get somewhere, apparently he kind of told her that might be able to help you get somewhere or help it so it doesn't smoke as much. Other theories with the rag are that somebody purposefully stuffed it in there so that the carbon monoxide would circulate in the car and it would disorient Maura so she would crash. There's also a theory that somebody put it in there after the crash, and one of those theories is that Maura put it in there. So some thoughts on if Maura put the rag in the tailpipe are either 1, she did it so she could drive, or 2, she did it after the crash to prevent more smoke from coming out of the car to hopefully kind of have less attraction to the crash. So that's definitely a very interesting point and part of this case. After evaluating the scene, Officer Cecil Smith, along with Butch Atwood, drove around the immediate area looking for the woman, but they couldn't find her. They found no footprints in the snow to indicate that she had left, and they didn't see her walking, but no other search for Maura was done that night. By 8:49 p.m., the car had been towed to a local garage, and that was that. By noon the next day, a bolo was put out for Maura Murray, and her family wasn't contacted until a little bit later that afternoon. At 3:20 p.m., a voicemail was left on Fred Murray's home phone, but he was actually working out of town, so he didn't get that immediately. At 5 p.m. on Tuesday, February 10th, Fred received a call from one of his other daughters saying that Maura's car had been found abandoned and Maura was missing. The Haverhill Police Department said that if she was still missing the next morning, they would launch an official search, and Fred and the family headed over there to figure out what was going on. The next morning, the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department began a search for Maura. A police dog was able to track Maura's scent about 100 yards up the road, but then the scent was gone. So this led police to believe that she may have possibly gotten into another car at that point. By the end of the first search day, no sign of Maura in the area was found. And police began to say that they believed that Maura had come to Haverhill to attempt to take her life. But her family did not believe that. Her family thought that there were no signs that pointed that she wanted to be gone forever. She told her teachers that she was just going to be out for a week, and she told her boyfriend that they would talk later. They also said that Maura was spontaneous, so they thought maybe she was just taking a short trip, to get some time away and decompress. The book that was in her car is called Not Without Peril, and apparently that book is about people going to the White Mountains to basically disappear forever. So some people started looking at this as if that was what Maura was planning to do, but her father was adamant that that wasn't true and that that book was just her favorite book. The evening of the first day of searching, Maura's boyfriend and his parents arrived in Haverhill. And he was interrogated, but I don't think anybody thought he had any involvement, but something really weird did happen with him. On his flight to Haverhill, he got a phone call from an unidentified number that he obviously didn't hear until afterwards, but the voicemail basically sounded like somebody kind of whimpering or crying, and Bill believed that that was Maura. Police were able to track the call to a calling card issued to the American Red Cross, but nothing else ever came of that. On Thursday, February 12th, Fred Murray and Bill Roche, Maura's father and boyfriend, held a press conference. And after that, the press coverage into Maura's disappearance started to pick up. Police also at this point reported that they believe Maura was intoxicated at the crash site, but that contradicts what Butch Atwood said when he encountered that woman that is believed to be Maura. The police reported Maura as potentially dangerous and suicidal, but again, her family didn't think that either of those were the case. The search expanded through New Hampshire and into Vermont, and Bill and Fred continued to go on different talk shows and news coverage to help get Maura's story out there. And this was kind of the beginning of this new age media that we have now. Maura disappeared the same week that Facebook launched, and her case was definitely starting to get coverage in ways that we hadn't seen before. The Haverhill police chief announced that the search was now worldwide, and they began searches using helicopters, thermal imaging cameras, along with cadaver dogs and other search dogs. The University of Massachusetts campus police also discovered that most of Maura's belongings in her apartment were all in boxes and that there was no art on the walls. A lot of people thought that maybe this meant she had packed up her life, but what I think happened is she just hadn't unpacked yet. This happened right at the start of the winter semester, so I think she just hadn't unpacked her belongings. A few months after Maura went missing, media outlets and law enforcement started trying to connect Maura's disappearance to the March 2004 disappearance of a woman named Brianna Maitland that happened just about 60 miles away from where Maura disappeared. But after looking into it, law enforcement has repeatedly said that there is no connection. At one point, a man came to Fred Murray presenting him with a rusty stained knife, saying that the knife belonged to his brother. So this man claimed that his brother had a criminal history and that he believed that his brother had killed Maura. He said that that knife was found in his brother's glove box, but at the time, this man's family said that he also had a criminal history and that he was likely lying so that he could get the reward money. But then in October 2006, a new 2-day search was launched in the area around where Maura's car crashed. And in that search, a couple of cadaver dogs went, quote, bonkers at an A-frame house. And this house belonged to the brother of that man. A sample of the carpet where the cadaver dogs alerted was taken and was sent in for testing, but we never know what happened with that. 10 years later, a private investigator went back to that house and collected a sample of wood chips from a closet that appeared to have blood on them. And private testing of those wood chips came back saying it was human blood belonging to 2 individuals, a man and an unidentified individual. They sent that to the police, but again, we don't know what happened with that. So although this knife and carpet and wood chips were all sent to police, we don't know what ended up happening with that, if there was any forensic testing done, or if that forensic testing came back with anything. More searches happened over the years, and in 2009, the Assistant Attorney General Jeffrey Strelzin said that the investigation was still active and was being treated as a potential homicide. And then in 2014, at the 10th anniversary of Maura's disappearance, Strelzin said that they didn't have any credible sightings of Maura since the night she disappeared. And at that point, Fred Murray shared that he believed his daughter was abducted that night, and he reiterated that again in February 2019 at the 15th anniversary. In April 2019, there were new owners of that property where the cadaver dogs alerted to, where the carpet and wood chip samples were taken from, and they were finally able to do a search. The previous owners had not cooperated with Fred's desire to do a search, but they were finally able to. The owners allowed for an excavation of the basement, but unfortunately this led nowhere. Strelzin has described how over the years there have been periods of movement in the case followed by dormant periods, but it is still an active and ongoing investigation. On September 14th, 2021, the New Hampshire State Police Department announced that bone fragments had been found about 25 miles east of Maura's crash site. They were found on Loon Mountain, which is an area that Maura apparently had familiarity with. So testing was done on these, and it was quite a long wait to get results, but when the results came in, they determined that the bone fragments did not match Maura. And then in January 2022, Maura's case was added to the FBI's VICAP registry. This is the Violent Criminal Apprehension Profile, and according to the U.S. Department of Justice, its purpose is to share information with law enforcement across the country to track and apprehend violent serial offenders. So local law enforcement agencies can basically request that missing persons get added to this registry so that their information can be shared across the country. And in January of this year, the New Hampshire Office of the Attorney General requested that Maura's case be added, and it was. Maura's sister Julie tweeted, quote, "This was long overdue, but a positive step in finding answers." So there are a lot of theories about what happened to Maura that night. Some people believe that she wasn't alone and somebody was with her when she crashed. Some people still believe that Maura had gone there to disappear and she walked away from the crash and chose to disappear forever. And many people believe that Maura met with foul play that night and was abducted by a stranger. There are so many online forums with so many theories, so I definitely encourage you to do your own research. But remember, be careful with the crazy conspiracy theories and other things that are out there because there are a lot, and in the end, this is a woman that went missing and has never been found. And we need to keep sharing Maura's story for her. She deserves answers, and her story deserves to be out there. Today, February 9th, 2022, marks the 18th anniversary of Maura's disappearance. Her family is hosting a virtual vigil tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time and is asking people around the world to light a candle for Maura. Maura's sister Julie is active on social media fighting for justice for her sister. She is on TikTok at Maura Murray Missing, and she shares so much information over there. She just recently shared a series about getting to know Maura and who she was, and it's really just incredible to see how hard she is fighting for answers for her sister. If you have any information about Maura's disappearance, you can contact the FBI at 1-800-634-4097 or contact the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit at 603-271-2663. You can also email coldcaseunit@sos.nh.gov. Like I said, in the end, a woman went missing, and if she met with foul play that day, she deserves justice. Her family deserves answers, and Maura herself deserves answers. She deserves for her story to be told, and she deserves for whatever happened to her to be discovered. Please join me in sending love to Maura's family today on the 18th anniversary of her disappearance, and I hope that you can think of Maura today and every day. If you guys could leave a thumbs up on this video to help push it out to more people, that would mean so much to me. Comment down below your thoughts and what you think happened to Maura, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos every week. And that's all I got for you guys today. I will see you in the next one. Bye.